All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and get started. They just finished up with the best in shows for Open and You. Uh, First off, we have Jacinta Tolby. Jacinta is a judge that I've known for multiple decades, and she's judged at numerous county fairs throughout the state. I'm excited about tonight for anybody that's watching at home or that's here in the crowd. I think it's a great opportunity to learn from judges that judge at majority of the county fairs. They're here tonight. I am going to record a few more of them outside tonight that can make it. Excuse me. But I'm looking forward to learning from them and helping you guys out to improve your skills back at home at your county fair, whether it's in showmanship, market, or another aspect of breeding and showing rabbits. But first off is Jacinta Tulby, and she's going to be focusing on how to prepare for showmanship.
Okay, a lot of you guys think or whatever when the topic of showmanship comes up, it's like, oh crap, I've got the fair and it starts in 2 weeks. And you think you're going to then, at that point, start worrying about your showmanship. That's not the time to start worrying about it. Time to start thinking about it or whatever is when you select what rabbits you're going to be using. People often say, well, little does are better than little bucks. And I can only tell you from experience sometimes that if they're a lot younger than what they would be, maybe 4 or 5 months old, little does pretty much so are maybe a little bit more laid back, so to speak. The bucks are just like little boys. They're nosy, they're everywhere. But as they tend to get older or whatever, and you're still showing that rabbit, does get very hormonal. They can change the personality to swear you brought Frankenstein to the fair and not your own little rabbit at that point. So, at that point, bucks are kind of like, yeah, want to do this again. They kind of sit there. There's something more to think about. Another thing to think about when you're going to be doing your showmanship. I know a lot of you guys, that's all you have. I do some fairs where they might have 2 or 3 breeding rabbits. Rabbits other than California or New Zealand, that's their whole thing is market rabbits. Market rabbits or whatever, I always call them rippers and tearers. They're not going to set down for you. They're probably not the rabbit. I've did many fairs or whatever where they've told me, I've used my rabbit, and it's like, honey, how long have you had your rabbit here? Used it, and it's like, it's 4 years old. Well, that's fine, unless there's not some sort of disqualification or rabbit looks like, real thin or something like that. That's fine that you use that rabbit for showmanship. It's probably not going to place well in glasses, but it'll be a rabbit that you'll use for showmanship. That kind of takes the place. So that's something to think about. If you're only having fryers that you're going to be using for showmanship, you're probably going to be just a little disappointed. There's, exceptions to the rule always. You get a hold of one or whatever, it just sits there. Another thing or whatever you want to consider or whatever, I know we've always did that before any big shows. We live out. There's not a whole lot of noise. We run the radio. We start adding noise, what's going on around, like having it have to live over here today with the announcements or whatever. It freaks most rabbits out. Most of the time at fairs, there's tractor pulls going on. There's all kinds of things going on. So that's something also to keep in mind. You want to kind of acclimate them into thinking that, okay, there's all this noise. It's not just like, hey, buddy, how are you doing today? Kind of little thing that you're doing. Another thing is the rabbit the size appropriate for you to be able to do showmanship with? If you have a really large rabbit and you guys are small, even myself or whatever, my hands are a lot smaller than Di's hands. I can't turn certain rabbits over the same exact way. I turn rabbits like dwarfs and Polish, something dwarf photos, something like that that's smaller. It's much, much easier to turn that rabbit over for myself. And you'll be holding it just a little bit different when you do the showmanship as far as where your hand should go and how to turn the rabbit over and things like this. So think, were you going to take the Flemish Giant and have the judge and expect to be, and you're, 10 years old? That's probably not a good idea what you're going to take for showmanship. So you really should think that through about how big the rabbit's going to be at showtime when you do this. Start reading up. I guess maybe one of the things or whatever, when you guys do this or whatever, I can usually always pick out the ones or whatever, the young ladies or whatever that has dressed their rabbits in baby doll clothes. Can always tell they carry it in and it's a baby, that's up over their shoulder and everything. The first real loud noise, that rabbit's going to be gone. It's going to be out of your arms. I can pick those out. I can pick out the ones where maybe a family didn't have money that year to support a large animal project, and they're like, here's my rabbits. Usually for showmanship, I still ask them to do things or whatever, but I usually ask them a lot different questions like, did you like anything at all about the project? Tell me, would you do it again? So, they do get something. I get some strange answers, but I can usually, like I say, pick that out also or whatever, where somebody's like, this year, it just wasn't in the cards for us to put forth a lot of money. There's also some counties and everything that require showmanship. I get some kids that's just like, I hate being out here. It shows. I mean, it absolutely shows. But I still try to do something to try to get some sort of accomplishment from them of why you have to do this. Actually, or whatever, what you're training for, we call it showmanship, but you're training for your first year ever a job interview. Showmanship is you're selling yourself. You're trying to sell the attributes of your knowledge, the attributes of your rabbit. So when you practice this or whatever, especially talking to an adult, lots of times I don't start my showmanship off that way. Lots of times we talk about something else ahead of time, like a young lady or whatever has got the cutest little earrings in her ears. Something or whatever that I might start with or whatever instead of myself being intimidating. Another thing that parents should think of and not get so upset, because parents, I swear, get more upset than the kids get upset, is, you got to remember back. Did you ever think in a choir performance or anything, everybody in the audience was staring right at you? They're not. They're looking at their own child. But, you don't realize that until you're older, that that's what they were doing. But, you think, oh my gosh, it's a lot of pressure to be out there in the show arena. And the show arena is packed with all kinds of people. I mean, it's very intimidating. So I always think, look at it or whatever, you guys are winners. You can buy a really expensive rabbit, and it can do fairly well. But you can't buy knowledge that showmanship gives you. That's something that you cannot purchase and you cannot buy or practice. So some of the things, if you want to start or whatever with ARVA, they're on their website, has a score sheet. Some fairs give me this score sheet, and I guess I'm just not talented enough to multitask, because I have a heck of a time when they want me to fill this score sheet out and listen at the same time. I'm just not great at it. But I follow the same sort of things. It will tell you whatever, like I say, it's got a score sheet, but I keep this in my mind of what's out there. I can tell you one of the biggest things or whatever that's going to lower your score automatically is if you walk in that show arena and you suitcase that rabbit. That's like the ultimate no-no to me. It's like they're not born with a suitcase on their back. You pull every bit of flesh away from the skin, from the muscle, and then you wonder why when the judge complains or tells you, not complains, but tells you or whatever, this rabbit's weak in the shoulders, or it's really loose in the shoulders. Not saying that that's all the thing, but what they can cause that. So when you do come out, you start at the front and you work your way back when you're doing this. You're telling me or whatever, and one of the things to make sure you try to remember that they have two eyes. They don't just have one. So that means it's not a cyclops rabbit. And you want to look at both eyes. Young people, they kind of get carried away and it's nervous and they do all this or whatever and they look into the rabbit's eyes, but they never look into the other eye. It's simple little things like this. Practice yourself doing it. And with the phones and everything you can do, you can have your parents record you, see how it sounds. Lots of times I get ones that's so full of what they've read as knowledge. I don't want to hear that. Unless I ask that question or whatever, unless it concerns that rabbit. I hear this long song and dance. They start into it or whatever about the whole lineage of that breed of rabbit. That really doesn't have a whole lot to do with showmanship. Unless I was to ask something, do you know what? Lots of times we give an example for that or whatever. It's like, do you know what rabbit you have a California? Do you know the point markings on the rabbit? Do you guys know? Or if they have this, do you know where those point markings come from? From every other rabbit? Whether it's a wool breed, you know, it's called points. It's called Californian mark. It's called Himalayan mark. It goes back to the Himalayan rabbit. So, you know, I might ask something like that. But to hear a reverse robotic answer, that doesn't do it for me. I don't care for that. Another thing you want to consider, you don't want to come out into the show arena and have gum in your mouth. You have no idea how much it looks like a cow out there chewing. You don't even realize you're doing it. Try practicing in front of the mirror also or whatever. But quit rubbing the rabbit. The rabbit, I swear, sometimes doesn't have any fur left on it, where it's a nervous tick before you start patting the rabbit, and they pat it and pet it and pet it and pet it. And it's like, okay, stop. Okay, doubt you have any fur left on that poor little rabbit after it's did all that. That's a nervous tick. We all do silly things or whatever, and we don't even realize we're doing them when we do that. So that's something to consider, that you don't want to do that. Also, if you follow the score sheet or whatever it tells you, you're checking for moon eye or the right color. I might stop you a little bit or wait till you completely run through, and I might ask you, well, I seen you said you was checking for eye color. What is the correct eye color? So I kind of, you know, all this business of what they're checking for, do they really know, or are they just repeating it? So that's something you want to consider. You don't want to wait till it's fair time into where you're like, you know, she asked me things that I had no idea. And believe me, I've tried to keep my cool over time because I've had little girls and young men or whatever tell me that they've checked their rabbits for termites instead of ear mites. They've just got just a little mixed up. And no matter what a young person answers or whatever, I can never laugh at that person. It's too scary or whatever. Something like that could turn a child into not wanting to ever take that rabbit project again. But you know, I've heard lots of answers. I've asked a question before, like, what's kindling mean? And I've told, like, that's a silly question to ask at rabbits. What? It read a book? Because there's a Kindle. I never thought of that. Or that I've asked them before where I said, you know, what's a pedigree? What would it be a pedigree? And I've had a young man, you know, tell me, like, this woman doesn't know anything. Said, what? It's a dog food? And I'm like, well, yeah, kind of, but that's not what I'm asking or whatever. But I never laughed at any of them because you know, I can't do that. I appreciate you guys coming out there or whatever, answering this question. But like say, when you do go through all this or whatever, know what you're checking for. You know, you're checking for abscesses. Well, where would abscesses normally be on the rabbit? You know, you got to practice. Often tell the ones or whatever, if you don't have like felt or not felt, or fleece covers or whatever on your hand, it hurts. It hurts a lot. You can take a pair of socks, and all you need to do is cut the toe out of it, and just take one clip with the scissors and cut one little strip. It's knit, so if you make a hole, it gets too big. Just take a snip into it. Cover your hands because it hurts when you pick the rabbits up like that or whatever to go turn them over. Like say, if you're doing a market rabbit project, they're going to scratch you. I'm scratched up and down, and you know, usually when I go to the grocery stores, the clerk usually said, "Oh my gosh, have you been or whatever? Have you been picking berries or something?" I don't dare not tell them. No, I've just been turning rabbits at fair shows. You know, they don't quite understand that whole meaning, so I just keep that part to myself. But I get scratched up as well too. Another thing to consider when you're getting ready for showmanship, you're having somebody else. A lot of the fairs will not let you have anybody in to show you. They consider that or whatever as far as almost like you're giving, if you have somebody, they would consider somebody like myself or David to be a professional. So they don't want anybody in like that. They'll let 4-H advisors or they'll let family members in. And I know you guys probably don't think that, but there's several fairs that's that way. And rightly they should. Those kind of things or whatever as far as trim and toenails and stuff should take place at home. not at the fair, not doing that. You can imagine how it hurts with your own self if you clip your finger or hurt your finger, and then no matter what you seem to do, you seem to be hitting it or touching it from that point on. It doesn't want to set. So there, this whole time you've worked and worked with your animal, and you have a rabbit that's like that, my foot hurts. Person, you guys cut my toenail too short. And you wonder why. It's like, I don't understand it. And it behaved at home. Um, the carpet that you use can make a difference. I know, like, sounds silly, but even from judging the indoor-outdoor carpet that you have for the rabbits on the judging tables, it hurts. If you take your hand to it or whatever, your arm, it's different. So the rabbits, they're not necessarily going to behave the same way. When you go to the fair, don't be surprised or whatever that your cute little rabbit that used to run to the front of the cage no longer runs to the front of the cage. It plasters itself against the back because it's had one too many people poking into it. So you want to be knowledgeable. You really have to watch when you get to the fair or whatever is part of this showmanship too, because you want to keep your rabbit clean. You basically have to overfeed your rabbit. And I say that in the terms of they don't understand that we feed our rabbits once a day. They come by our cages and they see no feed in the feed thing. They think our rabbits are starving. So that's what I say, or whatever, you overfeed more or less that week at fair. Make sure that your rabbit has food and water in it. Because the general public doesn't understand it. They ate 24 hours ago. So that's something to consider too. Practice turning the rabbit over. It's pretty easy once you get onto it, but like I say, that goes back or whatever to how big your hands are when you're going to be able to turn that rabbit over. Not going to be able to. Clip the toenails. I've got a couple different kinds. I like the ones or whatever that you have where the blade comes back. Say, you take 3 people. If the rabbit or whatever is one of these kinds that you have to worry about or whatever that you can't see, it's got a dark toenails, take a flashlight to it or whatever. It takes almost 3 people sometimes. One person to hold the rabbit, another person to hold the flashlight, and another person that actually trims the toenails that you can't see. If you take a flashlight up against those toenails, you'll be able to do that. So that's all part of showmanship, getting them ready for that. Make sure you have fun. I don't want you to be so gosh darn serious that you're not having fun. I don't mean giggle or anything like that, but show me that you're enjoying your project and that you enjoy your rabbit. The questions that I ask you or whatever are questions that say more or less, I try to stay that way. David's got a lot of really, really useful information and stuff that he has his programs with. I can tell you this, if you don't have that, which lots of times I get like FFA kids and stuff, that they do not have any kind of idea. And they're kind of put at a real disadvantage because they don't know that information. Study the glossary in your ARBA standard. The book of Raising Better Rabbits and Cavies, that's a great book to, know your own rabbit's breed. Like I say, when I said I didn't want to know the lineage of the rabbit, I do want to know, well, how big can this rabbit get? Usually with showmanship, I get told, well, it's full grown, it's 5 pounds. This rabbit might be full grown, might not ever get any bigger, but that's not the ideal senior weight for it. Or is there other varieties? How much do they have? Also look over whatever some other kids, if you don't know when they bring their rabbits to the fair, say, what breed is your rabbit? Because lots of times I'll ask the judge, myself or some the kids, it's like, can you tell me what that breed is down there the young lady has over here? That sort of falls into it too, into part of getting ready for showmanship. Is there any questions anybody would have? Yes.
Sometimes we do an exhibition breed for showmanship or a fair, would we have to go into what is COD, test COD with it?
I would not think so. He wanted to know if you wanted to exhibit a rabbit at the fair program. As far as we're concerned, the ARBA concerned, it's an exhibition rabbit, meaning it's not a recognized breed or variety at that point in time. Here in Ohio, there's 88 counties, and every one of those 88 counties has their own show rules. So I can't really say that what you would have to do. because none of them's the same. I mean, they just, you need to find that out. Also, that's something before you select your rabbit that you're going to take for showmanship. Like I say, believe me, the rabbit's personality changes from what you've had at home to what you get to once you take it to the fair.
So like I say, I think the thousand rabbits, you have to go into like about the breed, you have to go into type of COD.
No. No, I wouldn't think so.
Okay.
Is there any other questions? Like I say, showmanship is fun. Don't, make me, I like to have fun with you guys. I enjoy it too. So, like I say, all the silly little questions sometimes I've been asked, at least they had, the ability to say something, like they told me it had termites in its ears. I know the grandfather came up to me later and he said, "How in the world did you not laugh?" And I said, "Because she was serious. She had heard it. She thought it was ear mites and termites. They sound the same. She was nervous. Have a decent time. Don't be so rigid or whatever. I don't like robotic." Is there any other questions? I know David's going to be going over the actual what you're going to be checking or whatever in this, how you do that. But make sure that you know. I usually always ask her whatever part of showmanship is like, does your rabbit have a disqualification, your rabbit that you're showing? So that's one of the things. It's like, if it does, it does. Tell me what you'd change about this rabbit. Anyhow, if there's no more questions right now, be ready to look forward to this year's fairs.
Yeah, so great. Thank you so much for your input. Very informative, and showmanship is difficult. I know showmanship in rabbits is much harder, I feel, than the large animal species. You guys can tell me if I'm wrong, but I think it's much more difficult knowing you have to go through all the different steps, and you're checking the health and quality of the rabbit. So next up, we have Alan Gerhardt. Alan is an ARBA judge as well. He's also a nationally known Dutch breeder, having won numerous times at the national level for Dutch. And he's going to be talking about how to select show stock for fancy breeds, as well as breeding stock to achieve the goals that you want to have for your rabbit project. But go ahead and take it away, Alan.
Thank you, David. Again, like David said, I'm Al Gerhardt. I'm from Hamilton, Ohio, southwest Ohio. I've been raising Dutch for 25 years or so. I've been an ARBA judge for 14 years. I judge a lot of fairs in Ohio, all around Ohio. Most of them in southwest Ohio, but I get pretty far north as well. Been up to Williams County several times. What I'm going to talk about is choosing a fancy rabbit for 4-H or for your fair. The first thing you need to do, I think, is get you a standard of perfection and study that. Okay, study that, look at that, and pick out what breed you want, and study that standard of perfection so you know what you're looking for when you go pick out a rabbit. Then you want to find a breeder. A breeder that's been around a while, that does well in shows, to help you pick a rabbit and to kind of guide you and mentor you in what to look for. Some of the most popular breeds I see at judging fairs, I'm talking about fancy rabbits, are the mini lops, the Holland lops, Netherland dwarf, mini rex. Mini rex is pretty popular. I do see a fair number of Dutch and lion heads as well. But when it comes to fancy breeds, there's two body types that you need to know about. One is the compact body type, and that's what you have here at the Dutch. You want to make sure you pose it with the front legs right underneath the eyes and those back legs kind of square underneath those hips. So that's the compact Dutch. The compact breed. Mini rex are judged that way. Mini lops are judged that way. But what about dwarfs? Netherland dwarfs? How are they? What's their body type? Yeah. High head mount. Yeah, high head mount. So you have to learn how to pose them, and they're judged up there, so they're very lightly on their toes with that high head mount. Also, lion heads have a high head mount. So you have to know what you're looking for. That's why you want to study the guide, a standard of perfection. So when you go to look at your breeds that you're going to pick out, you got to know what it's supposed to look like. If you don't have a clue what it looks like, you really don't know if you're getting a good rabbit or a bad rabbit. You're kind of trusting somebody else's word. And you kind of will need some guidance too from your parents or from other breeders, but you need the basic knowledge. The standard perfection, each rabbit has its own written standard based on 100 points. Usually body type. Body type is the most important. Even on Dutch, 17 points is on body type. There's a lot of marking. There's a lot of points on markings, but the body type is still the single most important factor. And especially when you get into mini Rex. Mini Rex, you're going to have 35 points on the body. Then you include the head and ear. There's another 10 points. So it's 45 points on body type, 35 points on fur. So you have to know what you're looking for. And then people say, well, I took that rabbit as a junior at a fair last year, and I won best of breed. So the second year, they take that same rabbit back to the fair, and they get second place. Well, probably why? Because rabbits mature about 6 months. And if I'm breeding for a national show or a big show, I'm breeding so my rabbits are going to be anywhere from 5.5 to 7 months old. So that's when they're in their prime. So it's really a good idea, if you can, to take a younger rabbit to the fair if you want to win your best of breed or best in show, because that's when they are at their peak. Just about any rabbit is when they're less than a year old. It is when they're in their prime. They'll have good coats then. If you wait a year, that rabbit's a year and a half old. The second year, well, it may be in a full-blown molt. If it's in a molt, they probably won't do well at the fair. Plus they might get a little overweight. It might be a little bit out of condition at a year and a half old. So that's something to think about too. Is how old is that rabbit at fair time? Again, type is real important when picking any breed. Look at that type first. And then you want to make sure that you pick a variety that's recognized. There's a lot of what we call backyard breeders out there, especially when you get into some certain types of breeds like maybe lion heads. There's a lot of lion heads out there that people like to breed them and they like to sell them. So I'd be aware and be wary of some of those backyard breeders. Make sure you get your stock from somebody who's showing those rabbits and actively breeding towards the standard of perfection. A couple other things I wanted to discuss is when you buy your rabbit, you want to check it over to make sure that it doesn't have any major disqualifications, just like you would in your showmanship. I don't know if you can hear me or not, but you want to turn the rabbit over. You want to check its teeth. You want to check the teeth. Make sure it has that overbite. The teeth aren't budding. You want to make sure it has the 5 toenails in the front, 4 toenails in the back. Of course, you check to make sure if it's a buck, it has both testicles, and no broken tail, no rye tail, screw tail. Look at the eye color. Make sure the eye color is proper for the variety you have, which this is a black Dutch, so they'd have brown eyes. And a lot of Dutch have freckles. Just you want to make sure that there's no freckles in the nostrils or on the lips or anything like that. And you want to make sure there's no spots in the eyes in the proper color. So that's one thing you can do, and also check the ears. Make sure you have ear canker, and you're going to have the rabbit tattooed as well. If you're going to be showing it at the fair, the tattoo needs to be in the left ear. Sometimes the breeder will do that for you. So any questions on choosing choosing a fancy rabbit for the fair.
I got a comment.
Okay.
So, notice how he was going through and doing all the showmanship steps, right? To identify the quality of the animal and make sure the rabbit is healthy. But we're using those showmanship skills later on as we're breeders as well. It's not just something fun that we do at the fair. Like every time that we're buying rabbits, we're doing that every single time.
Yeah, every time we judge rabbits at the show, we got to check for those disqualifications as well. So yeah, it's very important to know that. You don't have to, once you get it down, you don't have to explain everything, but you're looking to make sure that it has what it's supposed to have, and there's no major disqualifications or no major faults in that rabbit. So that's a good point, David.
What questions are there?
Any other questions about choosing a fancy breed for fair?
I have another one. What, if you were really excited about like wanting to find a breed that's not at your fair, like how would you find it? What do you think?
I would go to a big show like this. There's all kinds of different breeds here. So you can go to the main convention. You go to the national convention, the ARBA convention, which is going to be in Indianapolis this year. Every breed's going to be represented there. And you also want to be a member. Probably look into being a member or look into being in the national specialty club. Like I'm a member of the American Dutch Rabbit Club. And most of the time, if you become a member, they give you a guidebook. Like a lot of breeds give you guidebooks. A lot of information in those guidebooks. Get a hold of the president of the national club or your state club, and they can help you a great deal in guiding you towards breeders or towards the right people to pick that breed that you want to show at the fair. So yeah, there's a lot of good information in the national the national clubs as well as the state clubs, and I would fully recommend that you become a member. Youth memberships usually aren't very much. Some of them less than $10 for a year, and you get a lot. You get a lot for your money. You can also if you start going to shows, you can get sweepstakes points and things like that. And meet a lot of cool friends too as well. Any other questions, ma'am? Do you have one? Okay. You were just waving at me.
Yes, I was just waving.
Okay.
You have a very nice.
Yep. Terry, what was your first breed at the fair? Chocolate Havana. So there's a fancy breed, Havanas, and I didn't mention those. Those are very, very good breeds to start off with. You have a lot of different colors to choose from. They're a slick rabbit, they're a medium-sized rabbit. Yeah, they do very well. I would think a good Havana and a prime coat could easily win best in show at good time. Yes.
Is a Rex classified European
Well, standard Rex is actually would be a 4-class rabbit. Yes, because they're under 9 pounds, so they are a 4-class rabbit. I guess you would call them a more fancy rabbit than a commercial, but they do kind of fall right there in between because there are a lot of people they do have a more commercial body type, I would say. But yeah, they are considered a 4-class rabbit. And you gotta know the weight of your rabbit too. That's another thing when reading your standard, because there's a lot of rabbits like mini Rex and Rex. They're too big for a mini Rex and they're not big enough for a Rex. So there's a lot of rabbits that fall in between there. And a Netherland dwarf, 2.5 pounds top weight. So there's a lot of Netherland dwarfs out there that I see at fairs that are over that limit, over that weight limit. So you have to be careful when choosing your rabbits, and that's why I suggest make sure you study that standard and weigh those rabbits. And of course, that's a senior rabbit. So if you got a rabbit that's too big for the standard, it's probably not going to do all that well. That's a fair. Well, thank you very much. Yes. Well, yeah, Dutch breed, you do have a lot of mismarked babies sitting in the litter. Typically, when I raise them, I'll have about a third of my rabbits that I raise would be marked, would be sold. A third. So if I have a litter of 6, probably 2 in that litter will be showable. And that's kind of an average. And that's just showable, where the markings aren't disqualification. They're still going to have some faults. They're going to have a biased saddle, or one stop might be longer than the other, or something like that. But about a third of what I raise is showable. Good question. So and that's another thing I want to mention. There is a pet market out there, and the reason they're pets is probably because people called them and sent them to a pet store because they didn't have the markings, or they didn't have the proper color, or the body type wasn't good enough. So I steer away from pet shops to getting your show animals, and stick with breeders. Stick with breeders at show and arbor shows. Very good question. Thank you. Thanks a lot, Dave, for having me.
Thank you so much, Alan. Great job, and thank you for doing that. Next up, we have Terry Fender, and his talk is on riding showmanship, how to win a champion banner. Go ahead, Terry. Where do you want to talk at? Absolutely. I'm going to hook this into you. This is my extra mic.
Okay. Do I need this in?
Yes, I still do.
Okay. All right, everybody. I said my name's Terry Fender. I'm here from Lynchburg, Ohio, ARBA judge number 609. They asked me to talk on showmanship today, and this is something that I really put a lot of faith and importance in. Because at fair time, most of the fairs are in the dead of summer, and even the best rabbit can go into a bad molt, and there goes your hope of grand champion. Or showmanship, though, that's not going to go into a molt, and it's something that the young person's done themselves, from studying, from handling the rabbit. It's nothing that, it can be bought, it has to be earned. Now, sometimes showmanship does vary from county to county, or even state to state, or at the ARBA level. So some questions, we do need to direct back to your 4-H advisor, your county extension agent, just to make sure, what we're telling you today is correct for your county. But in the big picture, things are, we look at things pretty much the same. Maybe we weigh them a little different, or the process is a little different. But what we're looking for in showmanship is the ability to handle the rabbit just like the judge does. Today, when you was watching your rabbits being judged, pretty much the showmanship contestant will be checking the same things that the judge was. And also there is a little bit of a knowledge aspect. Now those questions can vary on the breed specific, maybe some general questions, some nutrition questions, and again, that's usually up to the judge what they're going to use. But what I always tell, when I had a 4-H club, when I was an advisor, and when I put on these clinics to the young kids, several things you want to study. One of them, of course, is if you're a 4-H member, study your 4-H project book. There's so much information in there that you need to go over. Sometimes we might think, well, maybe that's a little simple, but still, sometimes the simplest things may be the hardest if we forget to look at them there. The other thing is, of course, the ARBA standard of perfection. That's what every breed standard is listed in. That's what the judges judge by. So, we're not going to ask you hard questions like the judge, took on their judge exam, but, maybe know the varieties of your breed. Maybe, what's the most important? Is it body type? Is it color? Is it markings? Something like that. It doesn't hurt to, know the question, to know the weight of the animals as well. But, that gives you an idea of some of the things that we're looking for. Now, the ARBA website does have a sheet listed on there that's used at the ARBA convention, and that's at arba.net. You can go to the youth part of that and find that. Now, for most of the county fairs that I work at, I really don't run into a lot of judges that use that on the county level, but I still like to recommend it because it does break down certain sections, the handling, what we're looking for, the questions, I believe maybe even a few points on the animal itself, the appearance of the person. So by looking at that, it gives you at least an idea of what's expected of you. So I really definitely recommend you going on the ARBA website to get that. Now we talk about, the appearance of the person. When I'm doing it on the county level, I don't put a huge amount of points on the appearance. I'm more concerned how you handle your rabbit, if you know the questions, if you're able to keep the rabbit under control. However, it doesn't hurt, and some counties do require, certain dress attire. So it's always a good idea to go in with long pants on. I know a lot of the fairs take place when it's 100 degrees out, but still, you're not in front of the judge that long. So wear long pants, long sleeves is always a good idea. I like, either a show coat or an apron. Just makes you look professional. If you go up there in shorts, maybe flip-flops, a variety of piercings and everything, that's not putting a real professional look on when we're doing showmanship. So for that little bit of time that you're in front of the judge, it's a good idea to just spiff up a little bit and, have that professional look. Now, one thing that I've always had trouble with, and I still work on it today, is eye contact. When I work with these young kids, I like to see the young person look at me right in the eye. I know several years ago I had this one young lady in the class. She was probably not going to place the top one or two, but every time I looked at her, it was almost scary. The eye contact right in your eye there. And that gave her those extra few points that helped her step up a little bit. Uh, Also, just a casual, not the casual attitude, but just a professional attitude. Sometimes we might want to call it polish or professionalism, but just go up there and show an air of confidence. Now, I'm not talking cocky, but an air of confidence like you know what you're talking about. Because sometimes I've seen two young people, they answer both of them answer the questions right. For instance, if I'd say, name 3 varieties of the silver martin, one person might say, well, black, blue, chocolate. They're right. But the next person looks me right in the eye and he goes, black, blue, chocolate. Both of you got the answer right, but there's that little bit of the eye contact as well as just the polish, the performance of it there. A lot of that comes just with practice. Sometimes the younger people, it takes time when you're starting out with showmanship as just a young person. That was me 2 or 3 years ago, I think. But, it takes a while. You take those little baby steps. And I always tell the young people, if you don't do what you thought you really wanted to, every year is a step. So take what you learned at the fair this year, watch the other kids around you. You'll see some good things, and you'll probably see some bad things. But take all that, apply it to next year, and every year we hope to step a little bit more. And as we gain more confidence, we'll probably get a little more of that polish where we look them in the eye, we answer the questions. That's what I like to see. Now, one thing sometimes maybe we don't talk about enough is also keeping your rabbit under control. Now, some county fairs I do may have a bunch, say a dozen young people lined up at the same table. Others may do it, one young person at a time. They'll bring the young person up, they'll do their presentation, move on, and the next young person. Well, that's not too much of a trouble there. However, like some counties, you have 12 young people lined up at the same table. That's where control of the rabbit really comes into play. Because if I'm down here talking to one young person, New Zealand at the far end of the table comes running down here and interrupts this person, well, that person's probably going to get a little deduction because they didn't keep control of the rabbit. And also control the rabbit when they're turning the rabbit over. Like, we turn it over like Al was doing a while ago, checking teeth, toenails, sexing the animal. Um, every time, even the judge, if you watch us, every once in a while there's going to be that rabbit that just causes problems and doesn't want to flip over too well. Well, if the person still acts confident, if that rabbit kicks back over, and then the young person gets all flustered and runs their presentation, well, unfortunately, yeah, we probably will have to, deduct some points there. But if the young person has trouble and the rabbit kicks over, but he just goes right back like nothing ever happens, turns the rabbit back over, well, that shows me confidence and poise. So we're probably not going to deduct a whole lot because that young person just went back on and didn't let it bother him or her. So I think we probably covered most of what I wanted to talk about. Was there any more questions for me on showmanship? Okay, well, yes, David.
What, um, when you're thinking about the top couple kids, what is that big difference between like grand overall champion, a class winner, and second place?
Okay, David was asking like, what's the difference between maybe the top person and maybe the one that's down just a little bit more? Well, a lot of times it maybe it's, they are both answering the question similarly. They're handling the rabbit similarly. However, at least when I'm judging, it comes down a little bit to the poise and the confidence level. Because, like we said a while ago, two young people may answer the question correctly, but one's looking down here, one's answering the question looking at me right in the eye. And sometimes that little bit of polish, I've ran into that in several county fairs. Two very young, good young people, but one young lady might have just a little bit of a confidence problem. The other's looking at me right in the eye, answering every question. So a lot of times that's what I see right there. Uh, as we step down a little bit, you can tell some of the young people that's put the time and effort in it, studying a lot, and others that have just waited to the last minute. But hopefully that answered a little bit. Was there any other questions? Okay, so yes. Okay, well, some counties and some states, they're 4-H book shows, but if you do like the ARBA standards, like being a right-handed person, I'll grab the ears. You're not really scruffing the rabbit, but you're getting your hand in just enough to control the rabbit and turning it over, and maybe your left hand is taking some of the pressure off on the hindquarters. So that's a good way. But again, like we said when we started, some counties, some states may be a little more specific. So that's one reason I always remind everybody to, check with their county extension agent or even their club advisor just to be sure. But I did want to recap just a few things here. Remember, study for showmanship. It's not something you wait until the night before. It's something you do weeks or months in advance. You go to the shows, watch other breeds being judged because you may have, say, a Netherland dwarf, but it doesn't hurt to stand and watch maybe the Flemish Giants being showed for a little while. You're not going to become an expert, but you'll pick up a few pointers that might help you. So you study ahead of time, your 4-H book, your ARBA standards, study with your friends. They might have another breed that you don't have, so you might learn something about their Palomina. They might learn something about your Polish. So work with them like that. Also, practice handling your rabbit like the judge. And this is something you're going to be an expert at, immediately. But, practice after you do this several times over the weeks, over the months, you'll see some confidence coming and your ability will get better. Dress professionally, try and wear your long pants. I mean, I know when I'm the county fairs, when it's hot out, I'm judging in shorts. However, I'm there all day and the young person's there just for a few minutes. So it's a good idea. Wear your long pants, wear your long sleeves, maybe a show coat or an apron. And remember the final points, the contact, the eye contact. Uh, don't talk to your neighbor beside you. He may be talking to you, but odds are as soon as you say something back to him, that's when the judge is going to look at you. So don't talk to anybody else. And remember, go to the ARBA website, run off a copy of the ARBA showmanship form there. Even if the judge doesn't use it, I think it's a great way to start. It will give you an idea of what's expected from you. And plus, if you're going to ARBA convention, that's what you're going to be graded on. So David, was there any more questions? Alrighty guys, thanks for having me, David. Enjoy.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We got two more topics for tonight. Yeah, thank you so much, Terry, and for all the speakers tonight. It's definitely an honor and privilege through various topics.
Remember this.
Oh, thank you, sir. I forgot that. Thank you. I'm glad you remembered it. All right, so like I said, we're going to do two topics yet. One's fun activities at your fair, and then the second one is going to be on market rabbits and breeding select or choosing what you want for market rabbits. All right, I got the camera set. All right, so what are fun things that you guys do at your fairs to have to encourage members and just have fun? What do you guys do? Costume contest. I think that's something that's super popular, right? At a lot of fairs they do that, and I think it's a great way, right, to uh, enjoy getting to build a special costume for your rabbit. Um, Other things I've seen places do are rabbit hopping, which we had here at the Ohio State Convention, um, where you literally you train your rabbit to hop over uh, to hop over a course. So um, whether that's having them hop in a straight line or on a series of jumps like 4 or 5 inches tall, or if you have them hop over a series of jumps that are like 10 inches tall, you can increase the difficulty with it. But I think it's a fun way to have youth participate. I know that that's something that you guys did earlier today. I think it's a fun way to get to enjoy the hobby, the non-traditional way of just showing and exhibiting in the breed class or in the market class. And I think that it's something that is important to do, right? I mean, at the end of the day, we're wanting people to be encouraged about showing their animals and being excited about rabbits, and there's lots of different ways to enjoy them. And for many of the youth, right, these are your pets that you have at home, and so it makes sense to be engaged in various things such as hopping contests. So things that I've also seen at various places is a maze, and then also the costume contest and hopping. But with a maze, the way you would do that is I've seen it where there's like a 1 by 8 that the adults have cut out a course, and the rabbits navigate through that course um, to see who can get it done in the fastest time. It's kind of neat to see the animals work through the course. Some of them really get it and enjoy it. Some of them it is more challenging. Um, Similar to the hopping contest, I watched it today, and I know that we're gonna have several videos up on our YouTube channel soon. Um, Man, some of those rabbits, they just want it. Like they literally want it. I was fortunate enough to get to use one of the youth's animals, and that rabbit, like when I pulled it off the course, it was mad. It felt like, and it wanted to be back on it, and it just ran, and we ran down the other way again. So I think it's great though to do some of these different um, types of activities at the fair. What um, do you guys do costume contests? Have you guys done mazes or hopping at your guys' fairs? Yes. I'm curious. Like, is there anything that like we could do to help you guys to be able to have different activities like that at your fair?
I was talking to Tammy. I said even just having an exhibition of it. Today was the first ever saw it. Obviously, then they're like, Brooke, let's do it.
Yeah.
But I think having that exhibition just opening eyes up to people, I don't think they fully see it. So that's one of the things I'm going to take back to my rabbit. I'll go and be like, hey, even if it's not a contest, it's just a fun thing to do, and then maybe rabbits do get a shot at trying it.
So what she said, paraphrasing it, is that just having an exhibition of it at your fair to get it started may be a great way to gain interest and to teach people it is something you could do with your rabbit. It truly is fascinating watching them jump over it. They had one of the rabbits that jumped over a 20-inch jump, and this was a little Batania petite, which is a super small rabbit, under 3 pounds. I still cannot understand how that thing jumped up over, but it's cool to watch it, and I think that people enjoy it, and seeing that that's something they could do with their rabbit, I think is something that's neat. So yes, I think having an exhibition first, and just doing the training and demonstrations, um, and then growing from there, makes a lot of sense. So you've done breed ID, and then you guys have done uh, advisors against the kids. Awesome. Yeah. Yeah, because both the so breed ID you guys also open to the public. Feed ID. How do you do? What do you do with feed ID? Okay. Okay. So you do a feed ID and you have the public do it. So then you have different things like hay and straw, as well as salt and pellets, and just are having them barley, oats, things to have people identify what they are. That's really neat. Nice. So for everybody that participates, they get a participation ribbon for doing it. Cool. Is it all fair week or is it just during a specific time? Okay, it's just during a certain time. Cool. Yeah, but having ways to engage the public at fairs. I mean, that's one of the reasons why we're there. I mean, first is development of youth, but it's obviously something that's super important is getting more interest and getting more people to be involved. So, um, what? All right. So now hearing some of those ideas, what are you guys going to take back and try to do at your guys' fair? So you guys bought a hopping kit and took take it back. That's awesome. Awesome. Yeah, that's really cool. And I think doing that exhibition, I think is going to be a huge benefit. I know we're working with Tammy at rabbithopping.com to create a series of different videos on like training a rabbit to hop, that we're going to be releasing soon with her. And I think that having that knowledge of what you even do to begin, how you fit the harness on them, and that kind of thing is super important. And then I think, but taking it back to your fair and getting that interest, um, people expect it out of dogs. They don't expect it out of rabbits. So. Cool. Awesome. Yeah. So they said that they were gonna bring it back to their senior fair board and talk about seeing if there's a way to do some type of a demonstration maybe for the first year and then see if it can grow from there. So that's really neat. All right. So that concludes the fun activity one. I did still want to cover commercial rabbits. Um, because of the delayed start with the best in shows being later than expected, Mandy did have to go away. I am still going to have her record one that I wanted to replay, or I wanted to still cover one tonight. But then Mandy will be having one that we'll have on the Rabbit Show channel here very soon. But so when we're thinking about commercial rabbits and showing them at fairs, definitely here in Ohio, there's tons of fairs. You think of Ross County Fair where there's 400 to 500 meat pens. There's several of these county fairs that just have such huge entries, and the rabbits are super competitive. It's fun to get to go judge those fairs. It really, truly is. It's fun to get to judge here at State Fair here in Columbus. because the animals are just exceptional. And having your hands on those makes you appreciate what the really good ones are. But I think as a judge and as a breeder myself, and when I was in your guys' shoes, the hardest part was, what does a good one look like? It, and if you know it, you know what to look for, and that's what I want to cover. If you don't know what you're shooting for, you're just hoping to get lucky. And I'll tell you that after we get done with the presentation, I hope you have an appreciation for what a good one looks like, as well as you can see it and be able to evaluate animals in your own barn to be able to decide, are you close, or do you need to get different traits? Uh, Most county fairs in Ohio allow you to purchase projects. Some still have you have to breed the doe and have the sire. But I know most of them let you purchase them. But even then, picking them out at the breeder's house, I think is super important. And being able to know what a quality one looks like and know how close you are, I think is super important. So I want to start off with, what are the most common breeds of market rabbits or commercial rabbits? California and New Zealand are definitely the two most popular. And the reason why is that over time, over time, those breeds have just shown the qualities and traits to be exemplary in meat production at a very quick age, and they're just super muscular. And then with being super competitive and having tons of breeders breeding for them, we've gotten really extreme traits when it comes to how much muscling there is in the hindquarter and loin and the shoulder on these guys. Um, as a judge, I see a lot of different breeds. Yes, you can show Champagne d'Argents. Yes, you can show Satins. Yes, you can show Rex. Um, you can show, yes, I've seen Flemish Giant meat pens. And they can be great. They can be competitive. Judging at the national convention, we do see those breeds that are super competitive in meat classes, but it's much more rare. There's a lot of super high quality animals here in Ohio that are much more common than it's New Zealand's or Californians. And New Zealand's of all colors. I'm not just saying white New Zealand's, that's definitely the most common, but there's brokens, so broken black, broken blue, that are super popular and also very competitive. You also have blacks and blue New Zealand's that are very competitive. Reds are not as competitive as some of the other ones, but all right. So the three main topics I want to hit is the traits judges want in the quality meat pen. So we're looking at meat type, firmness, uniformity, and then fur last. And then steps to raising a Grand Champion pen. And then if you were going to breed them yourselves, what are the traits that you're looking for to have a quality pen? So what are judges looking for in a quality meat pen? So when we're evaluating market rabbits, we're looking at them from three views. We're looking at them from the hindquarter view, from above, and then the profile. And on a market rabbit, the two most important views are the hindquarter view and from above. When we're at show rabbits, we care a ton about profile, and it is important, but it's not as important as these other two because most of the meat is in the hindquarter of the rabbit and then in the loin. And so if you have them built right here, that's what you're looking for. When we're looking for a market rabbit, we want them super wide in the shoulders and be muscular in the shoulders. I always look at, when you're looking at a rib cage on a rabbit, if you have a 20-ounce pop bottle, or 16.9-ounce pop bottle now, I guess since we've shrunk them, versus a 2-liter pop bottle, as a judge, I want to see one that has a 2-liter pop bottle sized chest. It just feels more impressive. They have more capacity to get food in or feed in, and then, but you still want muscle. So if you think of a professional wrestler versus me, what do you think you guys want as a market rabbit? Do you think you want my muscle? Or do you think you want a professional wrestler? What do you think? A wrestler, yeah, right? They have a lot more muscle than what I do. And so you want that 2-liter kind of rib cage with a super muscular shoulder. It feels way more impressive that way than it does as a 20-ounce pop bottle with the same muscling on the shoulder. It just feels better. Then as you go back, we want to see this taper, so we want them to get wider as you go into the midsection and hindquarter. So in the midsection, you want them wider, and that gives you the width and ability to have width and muscling in the loin, where you want it to be a really wide, deep loin eye, have a lot of expression and shape to it, um, and then a really wide hindquarter. If we think, I'm going to show some pictures here shortly of quality ones and poor quality ones. But the important thing is thinking of where is all the meat at? It's the hindquarter and the loin. So you want as much width there as possible. And then when you view them from a behind, we want to see them have that wide muscular loin up top, be well filled as they go on to to blend into the hindquarter. And we want a lot of muscling here at the top of the hindquarter and to extend all the way down to the lower part of the leg. We're going to get, I'm going to come back to the actual, we're going to look at each view separately here in a second. But this is one of the differentiating traits that you either have it in your breeding program or you don't. And that's firmness of flesh. And so as a judge, what we're looking for is we want them to feel like an apple. So if you were to get props out at home, you have an apple, an orange, and a marshmallow, and you were to squeeze them, take an apple and squeeze it, you know how firm that is, especially green apples are super, super firm. Versus an orange, it's firm but a little squishy, right? Versus a marshmallow, it's super squishy. We want them to be like apples. So pull out your rabbits as you're evaluating them. Take an apple, squeeze it, compare it to the rabbit, one-handed with an apple and one hand with your rabbit, and see what they feel like. If you just feel like apples, those are the ones that are going to have a chance at winning Grand Champion. If they feel like an orange, still possible, but it's just a lot harder to do. It's a lot easier to do it with an apple. The reason why we want this is that if we were to harvest the project and to cook them, even though this is super soft and squishy, and we would think, oh, it's going to cook that way too, it's not. The one that's going to still be the most tender, the most moist after we cook it is the one that feels like an apple. So it seems counterintuitive, but that's the way that it works. All right, so the next trait that we're looking for, because meat pens are pens of 3. Some counties have different weights. Some counties do pens of 2. Check their rules for your specific county. But most counties do pens of 3, between 3.5 to 5.5 pounds. But again, check your county rules. Rules are different from each county, especially here in Ohio. All right, so let's get back to those 3 views, and then we're going to dive into the hindquarter view first. What do you guys think? Which one do you like? Do you like the rabbit on the left or the one on the right? The one on the right. Why do we like the one on the right? The one on the left is pretty skinny. It doesn't have muscling, especially on the lower part of the hindquarter, correct? And so, as a judge, this one's an extreme one that just doesn't have that much fullness and is very pinched in the hindquarter. It's also very hollow. It doesn't blend that smoothly in the top of the loin. This one's pretty extreme, but as judges, we, even the ones that are like in between these on quality, we instantly see it and know, hey, these are the top end of the class, and then there's a bunch of them that are in the average or bottom of the class. And so the reason why I show examples like this is that I want you guys to know and be able to take them home and look at them and compare them to what your animals are so that you know where you think you should place at your fair. Because the grand champion ones at fairs are definitely going to be like the one on the right. And so, yeah, you can see I have all these colored with the stoplight coloring. So green's good, yellow's caution, red's bad. All right, I got another one. What do you guys think about this one? Left or the right? The one on the right. Okay, yeah. Right, and once you see it, you see it of what we're looking for. All right, I got another example though. Which one do you guys think on this one? Still the one on the right, right. So this rabbit on the left, he'll have a super huge loin, Definitely appreciate that about it. With other being show rabbits, though, we still want them to blend smoothly. And the rabbit on the left just doesn't have that much smoothness in his muscling compared to the one on the right. So that one, the one on the left, we call a hollow loin. All right, now we're going to get to above these rabbits. These are extreme examples on both ways, but which one do you guys like, the one on the left or the one on the right? The one on the right, right. So think about it, right? Most of the muscling's in the hindquarter and in the loin. Do you think the rabbit on the left has that much muscling in the hindquarter and the loin? It does not. It does not. So she she just naturally doesn't have as much muscling in her hindquarter. So if we were to harvest them, we would definitely expect the one on the right to have way more meat product to them than the one on the left. And and although this is a super extreme example, right, she's actually wider in the front end than she is in the back end, which isn't that common. We see it much more common where we see it much more common as judges where the difference is this versus the one on the left that lacks taper. This is a very average rabbit. It's a very common rabbit. It's one that you see at a lot of county fairs. And just for illustrative purposes, I have what would be the line around this rabbit drawn on this one. And you can see how much expression and how much difference the lack of muscling the one on the left has. And just the potential for muscling, how much it's giving up on the one on the right. And so like as judges, when we're thinking about what's the rabbit that's going to win grand, and we put our hands on this one first, or at some point in the class, we know that that's one that's going to go instantly to the top of the class. So other variations on width of body. I want you to visualize there was the rabbit that had the hollow one before. All right, now I'm going to show you the same. It's a different rabbit, but the same concept with these. And I want you to see the one on the left. See how you can see the loin? See how you can see that divot? Right? Once you end up starting to learn, and if you just learn them one piece at a time of just looking at them from above or just looking at them from the hindquarter, they start blending together. But you can easily see that like that rabbit has a hollow loin. Everybody can see it? This one doesn't. It's full even when you look at it. And yes, the main thing we're looking for from above is how much width they have, but you can still see those indents and such in the rabbits. One other common one that we see is this rabbit has some width in the shoulder, has a different line. It's not a smooth line or consistent line in its midsection. So we say that this one has a long midsection that lacks taper in the midsection. And then rounds out, you guys can see how that looks. So same thing. Those top rabbits, we just know what they look like right when you pull them out. All right, now, when you're thinking about market rabbits, again, hindquarter and above are the two most important things. When we get to show, and the profile matters a little, but it's not as important as the other two. When we're thinking about show rabbits and the breed class, profile matters a lot, and then you have to have above in the width. So I want to illustrate something though on the profile. Do you guys? I have a made-up rabbit on the left with a basketball and an orange for the head. The one on the right is a rabbit that's posed. Which one do you guys think, when we think about profile and the way the rabbit's built, which one's the ideal one? With where the high point's at on this rabbit. Do you guys think we like the one on the left or the one on the right? You like the one on the right? Yep. I like the one on the right as well. And I'll explain why. There's a big misunderstanding out there in the world that we somehow want, yes, we like depth of body, like how tall they are, right? Or how tall this rabbit is. But there's a big misconception that somehow we want them to look like basketballs, and we don't. We just don't. This rabbit, if we think about where its high point's at, it's at the 50% mark of the body. This rabbit, the ideal one, is 2/3 of the way back you hit the high point and then turn down. So it's a rising 2/3 of the body, so rising a third in the shoulders is a third of its body. It's rising a third in the midsection, hits the high point and turns down. So if you're good at math, right, that's 67% versus 50%. The reason why we want that is that if you have a rabbit peak in the middle of its back, you have to imagine this for a second, but like imagine what that loin looks like versus this one. This one's loin is much longer, it's much wider, it's much deeper, and it also just skeletally, these rabbits have more width in the hindquarter and have more muscling in the hindquarter than what this rabbit has. But I will tell you that this rabbit's much more common is what we see. And so when you are picking them out, you don't want them at 50% for the high point. You want them at 67% of their back. So a third in the shoulder, a third in the midsection. Hit the high point and pull down. All right, now we're going to test you guys. There's two rabbits. Which one do we like, the one on the left or the one on the right? So we like the rabbit on the left because it's taller, it's deeper. So this same line is this same line. This one is taller in its overall body shape, and that's why we like that one. So let's look at another one. Do we like the rabbit on the left or the one on the right? The one on the right, correct. And the reason and how we would describe the rabbit on the left is that it has a flat body or flat top line. So that rabbit just doesn't have depth and shape to it like the other one does. All right, this one's another one that's pretty common. What we like the rabbit on the right, but what would we describe the one on the left as having? Go ahead. Low shoulders. Yep, it has low shoulders. So it has that dip there in the top line, and then it starts rising up. Versus this one's one smooth, continuous curve. All right, and when we think about market rabbits, so what we're looking for then is you guys literally have exactly what I'm looking for as a judge. The hindquarter view, you saw the extreme bad one versus the great one. Same thing from above, the bad one versus the really good one. Same thing on the profile. That's literally all we're looking for when we're thinking about them. Yes, we also grab the legs and we feel the legs and we dig into the muscling a little bit. But like, if you get that part right, you're really close to grand. And if you get the ones that feel like apples, you also have the ones that feel or have the best chance of doing well. And then yes, we want them, 3 of them to all look the same. So if you were choosing to breed these animals and have breeding stock in them, literally you just want those parents to have those traits. Have the firmness of flesh, have the width and muscling in the hindquarter, have the skeletal structure for that. There's really no secret. Once you have that, you have the best chance to produce that same quality. What questions are there about on-market rabbits or commercial rabbits? What's happening?
So we're showing American market.
Okay.
So that's just to try to bring that piece back.
Yeah.
Shame because that profile is just.
So her question is that they're planning on showing Americans for their breed for market, which it is a commercial breed, or it's a semi-arch breed, but it's a 6-class rabbit, so it has quick growth rates. So her question is, what are they supposed to look like? Since they're competing against animals that we're just looking at, if we were to harvest them that day, how much meat do they have? That's how we evaluate them as well. So like, how much muscling do they have in the hindquarter? How much muscling do they have in the loin? How much width and muscling do they have in the shoulder? In terms of the profile, yes, we want a different shape to the top line because you still have that lowness in the shoulder. There's semi-arch or mandolin type, but you still want to see how much total muscling and meat they have, and that would be the same whether we'd be evaluating them same thing compared to any other commercial breeds. So it's just a lot harder because that breed just doesn't have the same genetics, from what I've seen at least, of the meat producing capabilities.
Very close.
Yeah, they're very bony. Yeah, and that's why if you want a competitive one, it makes more sense to compete with or do those others. But I know people do that for other reasons, like they want to have a different breed than other people, or keeping the breed alive and heritage and such. So, what other questions are there? Go ahead.
In your opinion, when you, I guess, counter in your breeding have mastered your market size, at what age do you kind of see that taper off if you want to go to like a show? At what age do you feel it loses its nighttime flush? Like if they're really good now, at what age do you see that it tapers off? Not as good on you.
Okay, so your question, and I want to make sure I get it right, but your question is if they look great when they're as fryers or a meat pen, what do they look like when they grow up, and do they lose that firm flesh? And the answer is they don't lose the firm flesh. They don't lose the muscling, right? They're built that way. They're built the same way. Like when we're going through and evaluating which ones we're going to keep in our barn, we're making those decisions when they're young initially. But we expect them, if they're super well muscled, that they have the right skeletal structure, to be great show rabbits. We expect them to grow up and be that way as well. They're going to still have have wide muscular loin, wide muscular hindquarters, and firm flesh. You would expect those traits to come through as they grow up. Good. How old do you start breeding your does for meat pens? In our barn, we would start breeding a New Zealand doe around 7 months of age is the youngest that we'll breed them. Ideally, they're 8, 9, something in that range. But we definitely want to breed them 100% certain that you've bred them before a year. And I think that's probably one of the things that happens for a lot of families is that, and we're breeding them multiple times a year. We're not just breeding this one time for fair. I think that's one of the biggest things that people don't have success with is they're only breeding that one time at fair or for fair, and they're waiting a long time. If you wait until after a doe is a year old, it can be done where you get her bred, but it's very difficult. It's very hard to have them conceive. Good.
How many days do you typically breed to try to narrow down your litter distance?
So your question is, how many does do you need to breed in order to have quality to be able to get the 3? I really think that's I'm going to answer the question with like giving a few concepts. We focus on line breeding in our herd, and the reason why we do that is for predictability. We know what they're going to look like at 10 weeks, or as they're a show as a junior, as a 6'8", or as a senior, and we line breed for that so that it's predictable. With that, I think that you don't have to have a ton of does and a ton of bucks in order to have a pen of 3 that look really good. But that's because we already know that this doe is going to produce these certain traits, and this buck is going to produce these certain traits. I think the biggest mistake that people make when they're doing market rabbits or showing rabbits is they buy some rabbits from one breeder, some rabbits from another breeder, and some rabbits from another breeder, and then some from another breeder, and they mix them all together. And I know it sounds weird to do line breeding, right? We can't do that in people. It's weird, right? And we don't. But in rabbits, we do it for predictability. When you start crossing multiple lines together and outcrossing the multiple lines, your ability to predict and to know what they have is very difficult. And so at that point, yes, you need volume of rabbits to be able to get 3 consistent. But if you buy a trio from a breeder, or buy 3 does and a buck from a breeder, or something, and you're consistent, you get some have those consistent traits, I don't think you have to have a huge herd and have to have a ton of rabbits. If you do mix it in with a bunch of different lines, then yes, you're gonna have to buy a ton. One of the things that I think Andrew Gauk is the one that I give him the credit for coming up with this concept. But what he does, he wins a lot of various national shows and regional meat pen shows and a lot of county fairs and state fairs. And what he does is he'll find a doe that he really wants, and he'll breed her to specific bucks that he knows the traits they're going to throw, and then he'll get like 8 does out of that doe, and then those does are all out of that same buck, and he'll cross them to a different buck. It's not colony breeding, but it's so by my point of why he does that is then he has 8 does that are all ish identical, and then breeding them to the same buck, he then has times 6 babies in a litter. He's got 48 babies to choose from, and I know that's a little bit varying from what you just said, but like that's for what they're doing to try to win state fair, right? So then they got 48 to pick from that are similar growth rate, similar style, similar fur, all those kind of things. But that's a way that in my mind you can get more predictability out of stuff. Yeah, so her question is, when we're doing line breeding, like what does that mean and what does it look like? We're she asked if we're breeding like daughter to father or something like that, and we're not going that close. We're going to like aunts and uncles. We're going to grandparents. We may have the same buck on the pedigree 3 or 4 times, and for some people that's super extreme and weird. But that's the way to lock in those traits that he's super powerful and potent, and we expect those to produce a certain way. Um, the that's how we do it. And that's what I think a lot of successful breeders do in lots of different breeds and rabbits. But it's a concept that I know that most people, I feel, make a mistake on when they're trying to get in to buy some from here and some from there and some from somebody else and bring them together. And it's hard to predict what's going to happen. What other questions are there? All right. Right. Yeah. Yeah, so her question and comments was that at their county fair they have just single fryer classes. They don't have a meat pen class. A county like Ross County, they show pens of 2 and they go from 4 to 6 pounds. A lot of other counties do the 3.5 to 5.5, and they do pens of 3. But their fair or your guys' fair is just single rabbits and single fryers. And it is a different dynamic if you're going to a breeder and you're buying individual like super extreme awesome rabbit, 1 rabbit for each entry versus a pen of 3. Because even if they could all be extremely good, but just built slightly differently and not have that uniformity trait. So yeah, it's super important to communicate that to breeders. There's lots of really great breeders out there. Just make sure it's clear to them of what you're looking for in the project and what your goals are. All right, well, hey, I appreciate your guys' time. Thank you so much. And if you guys have more questions afterwards, please let me know. But thank you. And these videos will go, this one was live stream, but then we will be editing and having the videos put up again as well. But thank you guys.